everyone, this is Melissa, and I'm the talkative introvert. So I haven't talked to myself in a while, so I figured I'd do a solo episode, and in solo fashion, I have a rant for today's episode. So like many people, I watch a lot of TV. I'm not even going to lie and pretend that I don't. I'm going to own it. I watch a lot of television. We've got it all. We've got Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video, Peacock. Then obviously, everyone has access to YouTube. So we've got all the, popular streaming platforms. And I literally have like this text thread with my sister-in-law about what shows to watch and like what movies to watch and where to watch them. So television is definitely like a big part of what I do in my free time. And yes, I do have other hobbies. I mentioned before that I like playing video games and I like crafting and making stuff, working with my hands. And every once in a while I do enjoy reading a book if I could find a good book to read. So that those hobbies do exist and they're there. But the thing about all these hobbies is that they require a lot of brain power. For example, when I craft or create something, it requires obviously a lot of creativity, so it takes brain power to first think about what I even want to create, then turning what I imagined in my head into reality. So, it does take a lot of thinking before even doing it. And I do get those bursts of energy and creative juices will keep flowing, and I'll work on something for days and weeks, sometimes months. However, that energy is very finite. It doesn't last forever. And sometimes I'm in a creator's block, and those can last for a really long time. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I changed my cadence for this podcast to every other week, because last year, luckily, it might be just because it's the beginning of the podcast when I started it. I just had a ton of ideas, and I just was, publishing like every week, and it was working. But after a while, especially because I started talking about introverts and introversion, after a while, it's like, okay, well, there's only so much you could talk about. I mean, I know there's other podcasts and YouTube channels that are solely about introverts, and I'm surprised that there's just so much more that they're talking about, but the subject kind of got tiring because it's yeah, we get it. You're an introvert. You don't like being outside, or not outside. You don't like social events all the time. We get it. So I was trying to change gears and figure out, and yeah, that takes a lot of brain power. And the thing about watching TV, though, is that you don't really have to think. You can literally just shut off both your mind and body for extended periods of time. And I think that's why people like watching TV so much, because they don't have to expend so much energy. And sometimes we need that. And sometimes people are just exhausted from the day, and so they just want to shut off. During the week, most of my energy is allocated to work and things that I need to do. I'm not always up for doing my hobbies in the evenings. For example, I wake up at 5:45 to feed Link, take him out, and then go work out. Then I have to be back home and get ready to log into work by 7:30. And then since I work a 9-8-80 shift, so meaning I work 9 hours a day, 8 hours on Fridays, and get every other Friday off. So I work from 7:30 to 5:30 within an hour lunch. And then during lunch, I try to walk Link, clean the house a bit, then make and eat my lunch. So an hour really is nothing, honestly. Then after work, obviously we got to make dinner, eat dinner, clean up dinner. So by the time I'm done with everything that I need to do and have to do, it's maybe, I don't know, 7:30, give or take, depending on how long it takes for us to make dinner or whatever. So I get a couple of hours before going to bed, and then I'm given the choice to either do one of my hobbies or just veg out for a few hours until you have to go to bed. With all the things I need to do on a daily basis, sometimes I'm just all out of mental energy. So a lot of times watching TV sounds like the better option, right? So with that said, I love watching all kinds of TV shows and movies, and my taste in genres, I believe, is fairly broad. There's not like a whole lot that I wouldn't watch. Like I like anime, I like the popular stuff. Like you came out with their just newest season just recently, and we just watched Squid Games, which is trending right now, and then whatever else is trending, we usually watch it. And we even rewatch shows. Like I rewatched The Office and Parks and Rec, and I just recently watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all the new episodes, and then their new season, or their last season. And then I'm currently watching Sister Sister. So I like the old stuff too. Like I rewatched a bunch of the classic Buena Vista Disney movies and some of like the 90s and 2000s shows that are on Disney Plus. You know, like That's a Raven and all that good stuff. And I love like detective shows like Bones and NCIS and or NCIS, yeah. And then like Lucifer, and there's honestly like an abundance of detective shows. And then I also like sci-fi shows like Star Trek and X-Files and Eureka and Warehouse 13, and Resident Alien's really good. That one's kind of a newish one. That one's pretty funny. And, you know, I love all the geeky ones, I guess you call, I don't know what the right term is, but like The Witcher and Star Wars and all the animated series like Clone Wars and Rebels and Bad Batch. And I'm super excited for the Book of Boba Fett. The trailer just came out for that one. So I'm pretty interested to see what they're going to do with him and what his storyline's going to end up being. So anyways, there's just like an abundance of good shows out there. I can literally go on for hours because there's just so many shows. But anyways, as you all know, 2020 happened. All the political and COVID stuff aside, another thing 2020 did do is pause production on a lot of our like beloved TV shows and movies, and new seasons got pushed to the end of 2020. Then it pushed to the spring of 2021. Then finally we started seeing new episodes get released like in the summer and then in the fall. And now there's news of even more new episodes finally coming out this winter. So we're finally seeing them all like trickle in and give us all the new seasons we've been waiting for, like some of us waiting for like over a year to see. And the summer and fall of 2021 was looking great for all my fellow TV watchers. And we're seeing these long awaited red banners in Netflix that say new episode. It's truly exciting when that happens. And I know I'm not the only one that gets excited when their like favorite TV show gets that little red banner at the bottom and says new episode. As these new episodes come in and as we get all excited and happy to finally watch and finally figure out what happens after the cliffhanger, we all sit like on our couches or on our beds or desk or wherever you watch TV to finally press play. But then as I start to watch these new episodes and start to watch like all the new seasons of all the different shows I've been waiting for, I've noticed a common theme across the board. Before I get to this common theme, I have to first say that I watch TV to escape reality. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like people do that. They watch TV to escape reality just for a moment. Like if I wanted to watch something on current events, I would watch the news or read news articles or watch certain YouTubers or what have you. but I like to watch TV to de-stress, to escape the woes of real life for a couple of hours or minutes or what have you, to immerse myself in a different world, even for just a moment, because sometimes we just need that. There is always something to worry about or just stress out about. There is literally an unlimited amount of worries and concerns in our daily lives and in the world around us. There is always something happening. People die every day. Sometimes they're from natural causes and it's peaceful, but sometimes it's tragic. Sometimes it's a drunk driver or an overdose on drugs or getting shot or by suicide or by a freak accident. Just recently, there was a car crash over at the Golden One Center. So if you guys are from Sacramento, you probably heard about this. But yeah, there was a car crash there just recently and 2 people died and 4 were injured. If you're the type of person who watches the news daily, then you know that horrible things happen literally all the time. Something horrible probably just happened just now, right now. Although it's important to acknowledge certain issues and to work towards fixing them, everyone, no matter who you are, can't be filled with negative thoughts 24/7. It's just not good for you. It's not good for yourself or anyone around you. We can't be thinking about all the terrible and horrible things that happens every second of every day. Even activists have to take a lunch break. Unless you're Cesar Chavez or Gandhi. But what I'm saying is that sometimes you need to shut off your brain and give yourself time to unwind or de-stress. And watching TV can help with that. It can take you out of reality for brief moments in your day. It's like a mini brain vacation, if you will. And of course, just like literally everything in life, a person can have an unhealthy relationship with watching TV. It shouldn't be used to avoid facing your problems, and it shouldn't be negatively impacting your life in any way. And of course, if it starts to, then I would recommend seeking help from a therapist or talking to someone about it. I know that I am talking very highly of watching TV, and I realize that I'm making it sound like watching TV is the most amazing thing in the world and that it can't have any negative impacts. So just wanted to add that little disclaimer, like anything can be a problem if done too much. Even drinking too much water is not good for you. There has to be a balance to everything. But back to what I was saying earlier, as we sit down to watch the new episodes of our favorite shows, did you guys notice anything? Because I sure did. It seemed like almost every new season had to include something that happened in 2020. Whether that be about COVID, vaccines, police brutality, or the election. For example, I just recently finished You, like the new season of You, and I thought they went a little too far with the whole vaccination message. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched You at all, it's about this stalker guy who gets obsessed with a specific woman. So far it's been like a new woman or women, like multiple every season. And sometimes his obsessions go a bit far, and it can lead to like murder or keeping someone hostage. He's known for having this cage, like this glass cage. And that's like one of like the biggest props in the TV shows, that they have this cage and he uses it to keep his hostages in. So anyway, so this specific portion of the season had to do with parents who didn't vaccinate their child against the measles because they don't believe in vaccines. And I don't remember exactly what the guy said, but basically they just have a distrust with the pharmaceutical companies or with vaccines or whatever it is. They just didn't like vaccinating their children or didn't feel comfortable doing it. And so Joe and Love, who are the main characters, their kid or their baby gets the measles, but they didn't know how or why, because everyone's like, aren't the measles eradicated, blah, blah, blah. So when they find out that their baby got the measles because this specific person decided to not vaccinate their child, Love comes in and bonks him on the head with a rolling pin, because she's a baker, and then keeps him in that cage that I mentioned that they built for their victims. Then eventually, he commits suicide, but it's related to something else. Either way, they assaulted the dude and he ends up dead, and his ending is actually pretty tragic and sad. But what irks me is these little snarky comments related to vaccines. Of course, they took the baby to the hospital and they were like, what? How can you have measles? Isn't it eradicated? People don't get that anymore. And the nurse or doctor, or whatever she is, makes a snarky comment about well, even in these president times, people are still not getting vaccinated. I mean, okay, they're not directly relating it to the COVID vaccine, and I get that. And I feel like they probably had to do that to be safe. But come on, it's pretty obvious. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes that I am not an anti-vaxxer, but it just seemed a little unnecessary to add those comments into the show and to surround an episode about killing a guy because he didn't vaccinate his kids because of his distrust with the medical field, which, okay, that's his choice. And not everyone trusts doctors, not everyone trusts the government, not everyone trusts, Western medicine. So that's his prerogative. But they made him out to be this, I don't know, this terrible person, and then justifying that to keep him hostage and to knock him out. And again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but the vaccine just has become such a controversial topic and has created a divide between groups of people. And I personally understand both sides. I think both sides are 100% justified in their actions to either get it or not get it. So I don't like when shows decide to take a side and they purposely try to make the viewer feel bad or feel guilty if they don't have the same view on certain issues as the writers or as the whoever owns the TV show or the network, whatever. It's just, it's like people, again, shoving their ideals down your throat. It's kind of why I don't watch Grey's Anatomy anymore. Grey's Anatomy, great show. Love that show. Needs to stop making seasons, because at some point it stopped being about the show and this little world that Shonda Rhimes created, and it became the Shonda Rhimes show where she's shoving her ideals and her opinions down your throat. So I stopped watching it. I watch it every once in a while because I do like the drama. I like dramatic shows, and I like those parts, like the oh my god moments. But then sometimes it goes a little too far. Then there's episodes really getting into the police brutality issue, especially shows about cops. And I get it. I do. I really do. I really do understand why they would bring up this issue and why they would make a big deal. Really, I do. I do get it. I know that police brutality is a real issue and one that has been around for decades. You can probably even say centuries, because giving people too much power has always been an issue throughout human history. And that's the thing about police brutality and issues similar to it. Not everyone should be given so much power, especially power without consequences, i.e. qualified immunity. Like what Stan Lee said, with great power comes great responsibility. And some people know what to do with that power and use it for good and to protect and serve the people. Then there's those that abuse that power, take advantage of it. And that's really human nature for you. People either want to do good or they don't. It's just always been an issue since day one, since, the first human being, I feel like. So I get it. I get why shows are speaking out about it, and I get why they want to talk about it. But I also have this feeling like, why now? It's been an issue for so long. Like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor that everyone keeps bringing up in these episodes. are not the first two people it's impacted. Like, people are acting like they started it, but it's been happening forever, for decades. There's literally songs about it. So why now? Why do you care now? And the skeptic in me, because I'm always skeptical of anything related with media, like with TV and movies and, Hollywood. I'm always skeptical of that because it's a money game. So the skeptic in me feels like the writers probably were feeling obligated or pressured or were forced to write about it because it's a hot topic right now. And I feel like the stakeholders or like the execs up top are, they're scared they might lose their views or scared they might lose their money, their profits if they didn't talk about it or at least have an episode to talk about it. And to me, like, that doesn't necessarily mean they actually care. It's kind of like that whole time last year when people posted the black square on Instagram, in support of BLM. And then for some people, the issue wasn't trending anymore, so they just went back to their usual post. And now I don't even see anything about BLM anymore, like at all. None of the people that posted that black square on my feed even talk about it anymore. And even though I don't think anything really was resolved necessarily, but it's not cool anymore. It's not trending. So people stop caring. And I feel like that's what's happening with these episodes, because they're kind of they just place it in there, like their writing sometimes wasn't really good or just didn't fit right in that situation, or the characters, like, their personality changed for a little bit just for those episodes. Like, it's out of character for them to say or act a certain way, but they had to work around it so they can acknowledge that issue. And sometimes the messages seemed just outright inappropriate or not the right way to do it. Then for some shows, it was just the one episode, and then they didn't bring back the subject after that. It's like their version of the black square. At that point, like, why bother? Why even bring it up? Just stick to the regular storyline if you're just doing it just to, I don't know, save your ass or something, or like be relevant for a moment. I don't know. I don't know what the idea is behind it, but it didn't flow. These episodes they're just trying so hard to stay relevant and to show that they are, air quotes, woke. And I personally have a huge issue with woke culture, and that can honestly be its own episode, because there are people who are actually woke and truly see the deep issues in our government and in our society and with our politicians, and they're actually working to fight those causes. But then you get these other groups of people who think they're woke, who think that what they're doing and saying are right. And because they think they're right and doing and saying what they think is right, then they try to shove their ideas down your throat. And that's when woke culture becomes toxic, when too many people think that they know what's best for society and no one is allowed to question or challenge them. And that, is problematic. And these shows, they're trying to be woke and trying to understand the population and try to understand society and try to understand issues. But sometimes people in that, group, I guess you could call, like the Hollywood group, are just, they're not truly connected with like the average person. So I feel like they don't always understand or know the right things to say or the right things to do. And that's why I feel like Hollywood, and I say Hollywood, obviously, like, TV and movies are created all over the world, but that Hollywood mentality in society, the Hollywood society, I guess we'll call it that. The Hollywood society should just stick to nonfiction, or is it fiction? Nonfiction. To their fake realities, their fake worlds and universes and just stick to their writing and writing, good shows and good movies and stuff. And I don't know. That's my opinion, because a lot of times celebrities and all these like producers and stuff who make a ton of money are just out of touch with the realities of everybody else. They're out of touch with the real world because they just live in such a different society than the rest of us. So I don't appreciate them trying to be woke in their shows and whatever. I was actually talking to Brandon about how there's better ways to spread awareness and to share important messages without ruining the show. And I gave him an example about Schitt's Creek, which is such a good show. If you haven't watched it, like, go watch it. I think it's on Netflix. It's super funny, great actors. It's like Eugene Levy and Daniel Levy, his son, and they even have his daughter in there. And just good, great actresses and actors, and so good. It's funny. Anyways, one of the characters played by Daniel Levy is, they don't outright say what he is, but I think he's like bisexual or pansexual. I think, but his character, David Rose, said a really good quote. He said, "I like the wine and not the label." And I love that. I think people are like made into t-shirts and everything. Like, people really love that quote he made or said. Anyways, when the series ended, they did a little show after the show kind of thing. And someone pointed out that what they love most about this show is that they didn't make a big deal about David not being straight. And I guess they were sharing that some of the things people in the LGBTQ plus community hate about certain shows is that they make being gay or queer or what have you such a big deal. It's always traumatic. It's always something big and extra and overly done. It's overly sad, overly anxiety inducing, overly just dramatic, but like in a negative way. Whereas people were saying that they liked Schitt's Creek because it normalized being gay. Like, it normalized being part of that community. So instead of like his parents making a huge deal and like him like having a coming out story and doing all this stuff, and being like, because I forgot, I was just like reading different threads and stuff, but because someone's mentioning like every time someone comes out, it's just so sad and it's tragic and the person is scarred for life and blah blah blah, and like the rest of their life is just sad and depressing because of their coming out story, or I don't know, something like that. Like, it's always tragic, right? But in Schitt's Creek, like it showed what it would look like if that was just normalized. Like, if this was just, if no one cared, like if no one cared what your orientation was and didn't care what you do with that, like who you date, who you fall in love with, if they just didn't care and it was just part of society and it was normal sounds like the wrong word, but basically in this show, they were able to show a world or a society where that didn't matter and no one cared and no one made a big deal about it, and everyone treated you just like they would treat someone else who would have fallen in love with whoever. Like, I hope I'm making sense. But they just did a really good job not making a big deal, and that it was just part of normal, or just part of society, just part of your day-to-day life. Like, and I think that's amazing. I was like, yeah, I really like that. That makes sense. What better way to spread a message than to just show how our society will look like if we just accepted each other and accepted our, individuality, like accept who we are as people, accept different races, accept different religions, political backgrounds, like show us a world where we can peacefully coexist together. I think that's a much stronger message, and it's just so much easier to watch too. Like, it's a very wholesome thing to watch when everyone can coexist and no one has to worry about hiding who they are or feeling ridiculed or bullied because they're different from you or different from each other. So I really liked it. I liked that someone pointed that out, because I think that you can still make a really good show without having to bring up those subjects all the time and make it so tragic. You can still spice things up and add drama, but let the drama be about something else. It doesn't have to always be like, oh my God, my daughter's a lesbian, or oh my God, my son is dating a white girl, or oh my God, my son wants to now be Muslim. I don't know. Like, it doesn't have to be that kind of drama. Like, show me a world where that doesn't matter, and set an example of what life could look like if we didn't put so much emphasis on those things. So, all in all, some of these new episodes were a bit disappointing. I was so excited to see my favorite characters back in action, but then we get reminded again about the pandemic and about all the social unrest, and it's like, that's not what I wanted. I honestly don't think that's what most of us wanted. I think a lot of us were probably excited to escape that reality for a moment and see what our favorite characters were up to this whole time, like live vicariously through them in their fake little world. At least for me, I was really excited for that. Like I mentioned before, I watched TV to escape reality. So it was a breath of fresh air when there were shows that didn't incorporate any of the issues from 2020, because it made us forget about that for a little while, even just brief moments in your day. And it was like walking down memory lane in a world where 2020 didn't happen. And it's nice. It was nice to watch those shows. So I hope my rant made sense. Like, I know people are all about spreading awareness and spreading, the news to everyone so that everyone understands people and everyone can have empathy and all that stuff. But I feel like there's better ways to do that. And a lot of these episodes they took a very negative approach to these issues too. And they took a very angry, aggressive approach to some of these issues. And there's better ways to do things, you guys. And I hope Hollywood will get that. But yeah, so that was my rant. And again, I hope it made sense and hope I didn't offend anyone. Sorry if I did. But yeah, I'm curious, like, did you guys notice this happen? Were you all for it, or do you agree with me? Like, I'm interested to know what other people think too. So let me know. All right. Thanks for making it to the end. If you enjoy what you hear, want to stay up to date on the show, please follow me on Facebook and or on Instagram. You can also check out my website at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast.com. All the information will be on there as well as in the show notes. If you want to help support the show, please review and rate the podcast and share it with your friends and family. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.